call the meeting to order. Approval of minutes. Has everybody read them? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Attendance or?
Oh, gosh, I did. Thank you. I'm putting them together. So, roll call, please.
Commissioner Carey?
Here.
Commissioner Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Henderson? Here. Chair Batterson?
Here.
And Commissioner Velasco is absent.
Good. Now, the approval of minutes. I can't check them off on here.
I will motion for the approval of September 8th minutes.
Okay, that's approved. It looks like we don't have any public comments or presentations. So new business, Arts and Humanities Month.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll have to wear the Dennis Smitherman hat today since Dennis is on a well-deserved vacation. Before you is a resolution for the month of Arts and Humanities. Typically, these would go to the council. We're trying to keep things off their agenda because their agendas have been kind of crazy lately. So we brought this to you for review and approval, and then we'll put it out there to the community that it's Arts and Humanities Month. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we need to do a reading of the proclamation. So a proclamation of the Recreation and Parks Commission of the City of Santa Maria, California, recognizing October 2020 as Arts and Humanities Month. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by the White House and Congress for 35 years. And whereas art, culture, and creative expression uniquely sustain and inspire local identity and belonging, acknowledge, celebrate, and bridge differences, support equitable and resilient communities, reflect our shared humanity, help us to reimagine more just and inclusive futures, and whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American and play a unique role in the lives of families, community, and country, and whereas Santa Maria's diverse creative communities, artists, and makers contribute vision, innovation, education, and resilience that uniquely sustain and enrich the lives of all residents, and whereas the Recreation and Parks Department partners with many local arts organizations, including but not limited to the Santa Maria Arts Council, Coastal Voices, Los Padres Artists Guild, Valley Art Gallery, Santa Barbara County Arts Commission, and the Arts Fund Santa Maria. And whereas learning done in and through the arts contributes to the development of critical thinking, problem-solving, imagination, and creativity skills, and are necessary for success in life. And whereas the arts industry in Santa Barbara County also strengthens the economy by generating over $198 million in total economic activity, over $8 million in local government revenue, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 5,857 jobs. Now, therefore, the City of Santa Maria Recreation and Parks Commission recognizes October 1st through October 31st, 2020 as Arts and Humanities Month in the City of Santa Maria, and call upon citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in the city and the nation. Presented at a regular meeting of the Recreation and Parks Commission held this 13th day of October 2020.
I'll move to approve the proclamation recognizing October as Arts and Humanities Month.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Okay, we have a grant application for Community Sports Park.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. So we are in the midst of completing the Prop 68 application for the Santa Maria Sports Park Complex, Santa Maria Sports Complex. This is kind of a carryover from the mayor's youth task force of, 5 years ago now. It's crazy that it's been that long, but where the community stepped forward and expressed the need for additional soccer facilities. At that time, we took a look at a number of locations. A lot of them were just financially not feasible. There was no money available. Some of them were, some of the proposed locations were so far out of town that it just didn't make a lot of sense. So as part of the Aquista-Apache development at Stoll Road and Depot Street, the opportunity presented itself to work with the developer there on 19 acres of parkland, which was part of the requirement of the subdivision. So staff proposed to the council and commission that we look at using that as kind of an interim measure. We would be able to build 4 soccer fields in addition to the facilities that are across the way at Manami Center. So before you is a resolution that gives the department staff the authority to go ahead and apply for the grant under Prop 68. You might recall back in 2019 when Prop 68 first came out, we asked the council to grant the commission the authority to apply for these grants so long as there was no matching funds required. Anything that required matching funds would have to go to the council. So this grant section, this cycle of grants that they're doing do not require matching funds. There's a maximum of $8.5 million per project. We estimate that our project will probably run in the $6 million range. We're excited to apply. Cindy's been working on it. We've been working with the landowners to get what they call a willing seller letter together so that we could let the state know that the property owner is interested in making a sale of the property. There's a bunch of other things regarding land use and subdivision in lieu fees and those things that we're kind of trying to avoid. So right now, we're just focusing on making an offer based on an appraisal to the owners of the property to purchase the property outright. And then rough estimates, you're probably talking somewhere in the $3 to $4.5 million for that, and then construction in the $2 million range for the actual complex itself, maybe a little bit more. Usually a little bit more, what am I saying? So that's the plan, and with your review and approval of the resolution, we'll be able to start the application process.
I do need to read this one, too.
Yes.
Resolution number 2020-01. A resolution of the Recreation and Parks Commission of the City of Santa Maria approving the application for statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds. Whereas the State Department of Parks and Recreation has been delegated the responsibility by the legislature of the state of California for the administration of the statewide park development and community revitalization grant program, setting up necessary procedures governing the application. And whereas said procedures established by the State Department of Parks and Recreation require the applicant to certify by resolution the approval of the application before submission of said application to the state, and whereas successful applicants will enter into a contract with the state of California to complete the grant scope project. Now therefore be it resolved that the Recreation and Parks Commission of the City of Santa Maria hereby approves the filing of an application for the Santa Maria Community Sports Park, and certifies that said applicant has or will have available prior to commencement of any work on the project included in this application the sufficient funds to complete the project, and certifies that if the project is awarded, the applicant has or will have sufficient funds to operate and maintain the project. And number 3, certifies that the applicant has reviewed, understands, and agrees to the general provisions contained in the contract shown in the grant administration guide. And 4, delegates the authority to the Director of Recreation and Parks Department to conduct all negotiations, sign and submit all documents, including but not limited to applications, agreements, amendments, and payment requests, which may be necessary for the completion of the grant scope. And 5, agrees to comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, ordinances, rules, regulations, and guidelines. And 6, will consider promoting inclusion per Public Resources Code 8001B8A-G. I, the undersigned, hereby certify that the foregoing resolution number 2020-01 was passed and adopted at a regular meeting at the Recreation Parks Commission of the City of Santa Maria held this 13th day of October 2020. So I need a motion?
Shouldn't we have the motion first? Did you want to?
Motion to move to approve the Santa Maria application for statewide park development and community revitalization program grant funds.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, I'm sorry, Commissioner Henderson had some discussion, I think,
Oh.
right? Before you vote.
A couple questions. It's, so the estimated cost of the project is 6.5 million. Is the grant for the entirety of that project? Did I miss that? Yes. So if we are approved for the grant and we get those full funds, then we can move forward through it. Is there the possibility of they offer us $2 million and then we have to walk away from it?
I'm not sure. This program is relatively new. I mean, we really haven't done it. I don't think they're looking at partial funding for
Okay.
anything. I think if you put an application in, for example, the Veterans Memorial Project was funded at full funding and came out of the same pot of money, just a different sub-pot of it, if you would. And so I think that if you present a strong enough proposal in your letter of interest, which is what we're doing here, and they ask you to apply, they've taken your budget, or whatever it is, and deducted it from their overall allocation. So as they're going through projects, they're allocating full ticket requests. It's a different way than they've done this in the past, for sure. So we're kind of waiting to see. But I think we're looking at full funding.
Okay.
The caveat to that is that we have to upfront all the money. So if we do get the grant, then we'll have to sit down with finance and figure out where they're going to find the money to front as we go through. And we do get reimbursed on a cyclical basis as the project progresses. We get progress payments, basically. So we'll be able to reimburse the city those funds as they come.
Okay.
So,
Which is how we're doing that with vets as well.
Yes.
You reimburse.
Thank you.
Perfect. Lee?
I'm presuming that the city has requested of the family to consider donation of full or partial compensation. And what is the response by the family to that?
So coincidentally, we talked to them about the Bobby Equistapache Park naming and talked to that side of the Equistapache family. And their question was, okay, so how do we get our side of the family recognized? And so one of the things that we've talked to them about is to consider something in the park. we didn't want to muddy the waters with the grant to say, oh, well, and they're going to donate, 5 acres or $1 million or whatever it is. We felt it was better to apply for the grant at full costs and then see what they're willing to do if we get the grant. If we don't get the grant, we still are going to go back and ask them for assistance in the project. So that's kind of the way we're looking at it right now, is to work with them as much as we can. I don't think anybody was on the commission when we did the Bradley Square Rotary Park development. And that developer donated, put in his escrow documents that every house that was sold, $100 of it came back towards the park project. So there were 300 something houses built there, so that money came and were used directly for the park. That might be something that these developers might want to do, or these owners might want to do, as that's not money out of their pocket, but it certainly would provide another funding source for a project. So, yeah, we'll have a lot of discussions with them, but thank you, Commissioner Lee. That's always on the mind, is how to get them involved,
Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any noes? We have one absent. The last go. So the motion passed.
Can I just ask what the time frame is on this? When are the applications due, and when do we hear back?
Didn't they give us a extension, or was that for the vets?
No, it's for the vets. They extended that to 24. I can't remember what the submittal was on those.
They want you to get started, and they want you to spend the money
Okay.
right away. So I would say that if we go through the grant process, money would probably be available either later this year or early next year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a window of time, anywhere between 3 to 5 years,
Yeah,
to get the project done.
and with this particular development, depending on where we're pulling utilities from, we may need to wait until some of those utilities are in before we can actually start working on the project. So
Yeah.
with feasibility in the development, that'll inform the timeline, because otherwise,
Yes.
if we don't know where we're getting electric, sewer, water, et cetera, then, we may have to wait until some of that infrastructure is developed in order to do that. But probably looking at a 2026,
Yeah, it's
You
still
know.
out there,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
not to say that we couldn't do it sooner.
Yeah, and again, if we don't get the funding, then we're back to where we were, just kind of standing by.
Thank you.
Just one last question. Is there any progress for the Green Valley? I know the county said they try to develop it, but has that occurred, or?
I haven't heard anything new on that project in quite a while. So no update for you on that. I will ask the question now and see where they are.
I read something about it just a couple days ago, and for the life of me can't remember, but I just
It was
read.
about the extension
Is that what it was? Yeah.
out to where the golf.
Oh, that was it, during the rancho, for the houses at Rancho Maria. Yeah, that was, okay, never mind, sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to the citywide community outreach meeting.
So I put it in your packets, just kind of a little bit of a proposal now that we're, a year into or 2 years into the districting of the city, to suggest that maybe the commission would like to do another series of road trips into the different areas of town and hold some meetings that we don't do a formal like this, but maybe like just a come and chat with us kind of thing, coffee and donuts, or whatever the appropriate food item might be. Similar to what the council did when they did their neighborhood or their quadrant visits. And have staff there, have the commissioners there. I like the format that they used of setting up, tables so we could have maybe Brett and his staff at a table talking about parks, and maybe Roy at a table talking about trees, and just kind of talk a little bit about what we do, and then have the commissioners kind of there to just intermingle with people and get opinions. I don't know how many of you have been to those. I know Rebecca has, and yeah, so they're good. I mean, I think
Great.
even if we only touch 10 or 15 people, you know, I think it's important. And I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen with the districting side of things. Right now, the council has said, hey, we're going to administer the city as one entity anyway, regardless of districts.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the residents, especially after this next election, are going to recognize districts. They're going to say, oh, this is where I live.
Yeah.
And they're going to recognize their council representative by district more. And so I just like to get a little bit ahead of the game and start laying that foundation with the neighborhoods. I've asked Dennis and the rec staff to kind of put their brains together and figure out some kind of a format that would work well on outreach so we can get people there. So that's my suggestion. We put it in there. I wanted to know what you think and if it's something that y'all want to do.
You know, I love that idea, just to connect with our community. And I was thinking, ideally, could we do it in our parks, in the neighborhood parks? And we would be outside and we'd be able to, do it correctly as long as it's, or under the pandemic. So, I mean, I just think that there's a lot of other, we did churches, we did all kinds of other stuff, but just to utilize our parks, and most everybody can even walk to them from there.
Sure.
So that would be something we'd have to do during the day, especially if it was, winter or whatever. But they're just an idea to throw out there.
Even like those pop-ups.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a good idea. And, we don't have to just go to one spot. I mean, we can space it out. It really is getting the staff on the schedule and then
Yeah.
getting your schedules to work and, to be available to go out to these. I think the council did it one quadrant of town each quarter.
Yeah.
So they didn't, it took them a little bit to get around the city, but.
I just thought when I was with the All-America City Committee, David and I we did parks all around town, and we did the Saturday morning, we did the donuts and the coffee, and we got the best turnouts, and people just loved it, and we just talked one-on-one and got like all the neighborhood stuff. So I had forgotten we did that, but that was really, really helped us connect with the community. So,
And that's the last time we've actually been out, short of the leisure assessment. So, I mean, if you're interested, we can put a plan together. If I get the nod from all of you to, proceed, then we'll do that.
I love it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good way to get people feeling connected again to the department and the city. I like the idea of using our parks.
Yeah.
But we have, our facilities too, so if they're planned out at the right times, we can use the parks that have the indoor facilities in our cooler months. And it is a great way to engage. Unfortunately, I think, in some areas, the weekend might be a better time to engage with the public, especially Sundays. That's a day that most people have off. And then most of the folks that are generally less included have Sundays off, and that's easier for families. So that might be something to consider too.
Yeah, I mean, time-wise, it can be, from the staff perspective, it doesn't really matter as long as we schedule it in advance. It's really on your times, it's your personal time, to come out if it's on a Sunday or whatever. And, we can maybe get some of the service clubs to do some kind of a food item, hot dog barbecue or something more healthy if necessary.
Maybe we could work out at one of the little, at Presker, we could do the little circuit.
Yeah? Good.
I think it's great.
Okay, then we'll put something together. Commissioner Lee, yes, sir.
I agree with everyone that anytime you can put a face behind the department and interface with the community, it's a good idea. But I'm going to go back to how I felt when I first came on board. Didn't feel like we as commission really communicated enough and to establish common goals. And with that, I'd like to suggest that before we go do something like this, let's make sure that we as a department, the Recreation Parks Department and the commission has very concrete goals for long-range development plans, so we're all on the same page.
And we have the leisure needs assessment. We can use that as kind of a guide, come up with those things and kind of see where we're going. In the general plan, Commissioner Carey, are you going to the general plan meetings, or who was that? The downtown?
Oh, yeah, I do that.
So, one of the things that came up the other day on the general plan update were the documents that they're using for foundation. And one of the leisure needs assessment is one of those that they're using for foundation for that general plan update. So that's good. That'll give us, again, some validity to that study. If it's, being used out on the general plan, it can kind of help us lay out our groundwork. And that project's moving forward, which I think will be a big help for us too. Thank you. I'll write that down.
This does list the 5 goals that we came up with when we did that.
Mm-hmm. I made a note of that. Thank you.
Okay, this requires an action.
Yes, just so you can, if you want to make a
Okay.
motion to give us the direction to go ahead and move forward on that, we can.
Okay, I'll make the motion that the commission, and in conjunction with Recreation and Parks, do citywide community outreach meetings are they quadrants?
Mm-hmm.
In the quadrants, in each quadrant.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? And 1 absent? And the motion passes. Let's see,
Thanks, we'll get on that.
Cool.
no old business. And budget update.
So in your packet is the budget report. Ryan is out today, so he's not with us. So, hold on a second, I have to dig it up. Oh. Do I have that, Sheila? Page 13. Oh, that's because I went to page 16 at the end. So, the sheet kind of speaks for itself, but just to give you a little bit of background going on. So, this just relates to the appropriated budget that we have. It doesn't really deal with, reality. So, we're always being asked to, reduce our costs and keep our costs down. So even being 1.64% below budget is probably less savings than the city would like us to have. So a lot of it is attributed to the fact that we're still doing a lot of stuff. And I think there's going to come a time during this fiscal year that we're going to be told, stop doing so much stuff, because the COVID impacts continue to be there. Next Tuesday is the quarterly budget report from the finance director for the first quarter. So we'll have a good idea of if any of the projections that they had on the negative impacts on sales tax, transient occupancy tax, and those city revenue items actually were as bleak as predicted, or if in fact they were better or worse. So we'll have a pretty good idea, and I think that'll kind of be a setting the tenor for our expenditures over the next several months. We have kept a lot of our positions vacant. We are just being allowed to open up some part-time positions and rehire them in order to meet contract obligations, like with the high school district for lifeguards and some of those things. So just little baby steps in hiring. We have some key positions that are vacant that we haven't been able to fill in full-time and 32-hour-week positions in parks and in recreation. So those are challenging. It's challenging to get things done without those key people in those roles. And one of them is the coordinator for the mayor's task force. That's one that we just have not been able to get hired, number one. And then when we had the chance, we just weren't getting the right applicants. And then now, because it's vacant, it's going to remain vacant for a while. So we're trying to limp along, as it were. But you'll see in the, so for this quarter, or for this period of time, the month, 1.64% under budget. It's October, so we got another 3 quarters to go.
Just comment? Yeah. Just want to remind everyone that those in the profession of recreation, one of the first things we learned in our curriculum is during the Great Depression, a term called the threat of leisure developed. It means that when you have the highest unemployment rates, people out of work, people have a lot of time on their hand, people either get involved with constructive use of time or destructive use of time. And therefore, the threat of leisure. So when we advocate for recreation, we need to remember that even though it's a very crazy time, we need to avoid the threat of leisure and make sure that our citizens in the community, our society is productive, continue to be sound mind and body and spirit. So just want to remind everyone of that and make sure that we advocate for this important cause.
We move on to noteworthy activities for September.
So again, you have the report, lots of stuff going on. Last month was particularly busy. A lot of, I guess, novel outreach. Kind of Paul was talking about having, providing more so that people can do things, especially trying to give people the tools to get out and do things like the drive-in movies, the stargazing party out at Los Flores. And it just amazes me that, we have these activities and they fill up immediately. And now because everything has to be on a reservation basis, that they just fill up. Bingo at the senior center, people just want to get out there and see somebody else, even if it's in the car next to them, and be able to wave and say hi. And we're affording our residents that opportunity right now. And I think the staff's done a great job in doing that. I know they wish they could do more. Things like the backyard camping experience that's coming up in September, came up in September. The participation in that, people just, they don't think about, yeah, I can camp out in my backyard. I mean, just that, it's not that big a deal, and kids probably play that way all the time, but we kind of forget. So I think that's, again, where Commissioner Lee's coming from. It's our job to remind people it doesn't take money to have fun. You can do that and recreate. You can just do that, on the spur of the moment. Mm-hmm. Any questions on the staff report on that, or the noteworthies?
I do. Just first, the amount of programming that you guys are continuing to come up with is to be commended. I really appreciate it. I think that's great. I did have a question on page 15. It says that some electrical outlets were removed due to use. And I was wondering, I know this has been answered before, I'm sure it has been. Is there a spot in the city that is designated for folks to use an electrical outlet legally?
No.
No. Has that ever been a discussion?
No, I can't recall it coming up.
Okay.
Normally, the issue that we end up having in the parks, and Brett can talk a little bit more to it, is that when, it's like anything else. When people use our electrical outlets, typically they misuse them, you know, like they'll disconnect our Coke machine or our Pepsi machine and then not plug it back in. Or, you know, so we'll end up having some impacts along the way. And that's, you know, one of the major reasons. But it is, there's really nothing out there that I'm aware of, and certainly nothing that the city is doing to provide electricity to people. Haven't heard of anything out there.
Is it something we can consider? Because I think that perhaps if it were offered in a way that, you know, hey, this is for you, use it. I mean, I don't know, I haven't done any of the research in other cities, but I know that, for example, I saw it in one of the complexes here in town, they have a bicycle pumping station, you know, where they have all the tools and they have a pump, and it's like, those kinds of resources really tell people that, you know, we care about, you know, some of the basic needs that they have, and if somebody's option to stay connected is unplugging a soda machine or not unplugging a soda machine, maybe if it was well known, you know, there are these spots in town and you can use them, you know, we can avoid.
Yes, so I think that, you know, one of the issues you're going to run into is when we have these outlets that are operational, we end up getting 20 people there, right? We end up with a fairly large, you know, loitering, I guess you could call it. It just tends to attract a lot of people, and then they tend to set up shop. And so for us, it's a concept of, you know, coupling that activity with, you know, if we remove the outlet, it unfortunately for them, you know, they don't have a way to charge their phone after that. But for us, it's how do we manage these parks so that we don't have, so that we're not just totally inundated by the homeless and the activities that go along with that. And so for us, the simplest solution was, okay, let's remove this outlet, see if that works. And then, you know, turns out it does. And so we've been able to really reduce a lot of the issues that we've had at parks, within the parks themselves, as far as homeless issues are concerned. So it's something I think that if the city were to approach it and have a timer or a time of use or something like that, where people can use it at a certain time, and then, but it has to be managed. You have to have people there to manage it and make sure that, you know, we're on top of all of that, right? So I think it's a great idea. I think it's compassionate. For us in parks, I'm not sure how we do that at this point, but it's a good idea. So we just have to be careful about how we approach it to not create another issue for ourselves.
So one of the things that came up when it was last week or the week before, I sat in on a conference, virtual conference, of about 100 agencies across the country that were dealing with topical issues, and one of them was homeless services as opposed to, you know, homeless regulation, I guess. And there were a couple of vendors. When you brought that up, it kind of reminded me that there are some vendors out there that have like solar, like basically it's like a lamppost. And my analogy of them is you see them in the airports where they have a charging station. And I think, to Brett's concerns, if we were able to locate those in the city in places that aren't necessarily our parks, you know, then they could, you know, they might serve the purpose that you're talking about, making sure they're able to charge their phones or whatever. But they do become a magnet, for lack of a better term, for hanging out. And then that brings their problems with them. But I made a note here to take a look at that and see what's out there. Cities in Southern California who are dealing with a humongous homeless problem compared to what we do have come up with some pretty innovative ideas in how to work with the homeless and help them meet their needs. So I'll look and see what there is out there in that regard.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
At our last meeting, my understanding in regards to the homeless is that if there is space in the shelters, that's where they have to go. Otherwise, they cannot camp out, correct?
Right.
So my comment is, we want, in my opinion, we want to discourage people from being in the park and in the shopping centers. Because I know in our area, by McCoy and Broadway, the stores there have experienced a lot of problems. They used to have the recycling center there. And there's just tons of problems. Stores being broken into. My daughter-in-law's jewelry store was the burglar. He went on the roof and cut the burglar alarms, etc. So my point is there's so many problems with on the homeless congregating in various places. So my advice is let's discourage that. If they have a place to go, a shelter, then they should go there. And my nephew is in the CHP. He says the same thing. If you go down to Southern California, they have these homeless camps where they have their own security, their own government, and it's frightening. So let's hope Santa Maria never gets to that point. The other comment I want to make is, Laura, you made a point about bicycles, and in our encouragement for people to start biking more and walking more. When I was at UCSB, we actually had Associated Students had a campus bike shop where basically they can go take their bike, and you had all the tools and a place to hang the bike, to fix the bike, and it was very well utilized. And if we can look into maybe creating something like that for the city, that would be awesome.
We do have kind of a little bit of a partnership right now with BC Centra, right?
BC Central.
Over here on Oak Street, and they do provide
Yeah.
hours. It's really not, I'm sure that they would like to be open more than they are and have more people there. But it is kind of an unknown unless you're a biker person and you know where they are. They're kind of back here and tucked in a corner. But that came up probably 4 or 5 years ago from Santa Barbara, and I think it's been pretty successful when they do provide that service. But we don't market it. Something we could certainly help with putting the word out in the rec guide or on our webpage and put the info out there for people. I did make a note of that too.
While we're on that topic, talk about extending the bike path all the way from the river to Guadalupe. Is that still on?
So it's every once in a while it will rear its head. The ag community is still much opposed to anything along the levee, west of Santa Maria. It's a natural link. It's it could be a really great route to get to the dunes in the Guadalupe area.
COVID.
Yeah, but right now the levee runs through private property, and it's getting those private property people to either provide an easement or sell the property, and then the county has to figure out a way to secure the ag fields. A lot of that now, food safety, thank you, is an issue where people are, getting off their bikes or walking and going down into the areas and doing bad things in the plants. So that's kind of where they hang their hat. Right or wrong, that's kind of where it is. Thank you, I will make those notes.
Okay, we'll move on to director's report.
I mentioned that I was on this virtual directors meeting across the country, and it's amazing to me that really, I don't care where you are in the States, it's all the same. We all are facing the same issues. It's all, budget. It's all dealing with the changing economics and the changing demographics of your community. Some cities have really gone off and done some really great risk-taking and come up with some great programs. City of Norwalk was one of the people that I connected with, and they have within the city, they actually run their own social services department. They stepped away from the county and said, they're still there and they still provide some service, but Norwalk has its own section. And it runs the senior centers, it runs some homeless facilities, and field social workers where they go out and work in the field in the community. And it's pretty innovative. It's not cheap. It runs them about $7 million a year. but they do all the congregate feeding programs, senior nutrition and those things. They bring in a lot of outside money to help fund a lot of those things. The other that I just saw the other day on the League of Cities conference was Orange County, where they actually built 2 new homeless shelters, kind of answering Commissioner Lee's comment about the fact that if your shelter is full, you can't enforce your laws, your local laws. If your shelter has bed space and individuals refuse to go to the shelter, then it's enforceable. So these 12 cities in Orange County got together, built two 76-bed centers. They're called navigation centers, and they provide not only the meals and security and housing and that, but they also provide support work with social workers, mental health workers, and that's all run, that component is run by Orange County Health Department. But it was a way to kind of reach out, and I think our shelters are just so impacted, the private shelters that we have, and there's really nowhere else for individuals who want help to go if you don't go there. And so we're in that tipping point, I think, now where if we confront people, or Casey's and the Rangers confront people in the field, is there room in the shelter? And they have to make the call. And if there's room, then we say, hey, you have to go to the shelter. If they don't want to go, then we have to go the law enforcement route. So there's some novel ideas out there. I don't know that Santa Maria is ready to build its own shelter, but certainly, we could look at some alternatives with some of our nonprofits and see if anybody else wants to do that. That's just a sign of the times. I don't think it's going to get any better anytime soon. We are in the midst of reopening the fitness center at the Maldonado Center. We've submitted we have our draft plan ready to submit. We've submitted a plan to reopen the lawn bowling green. We've submitted a plan to reopen the lawn bowling green. The lawn bowlers, we don't know that they're 100% on board with the plan because it does require them to do a lot of stuff, which they may or may not. When we approached them a few months, actually it's probably been 2 months now, back, they refused to do any of the things that we said they would have to do to reopen. So now with being in the red zone, we're we can be a little bit more flexible with the requirements. So we're going to propose to them a new plan, and the goal would be to open on November the 2nd. And the Maldonado Fitness Center would be open for adult use beginning on November 2nd from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. There will be a $5 charge, just like the swimming pool. They'll be using the same system. We can only allow a certain number of people in. So they'll have to get a reservation time, and then they'll have to come in and do their workout within an hour, and then they'll need to exit, and we have to go in and clean everything, and then we can let the next group come in for another hour and kind of work our way through the day. So even though it's open 8 to 5, you're probably really talking about a good maybe 5 sessions where you really be able to get in and have the public in the building. I told the mayor today it's baby steps. We're just trying to do a little bit at a time. Don't want to overwhelm people. You will see some media tonight or tomorrow on the Maldonado Center. We did an interview with KCOY yesterday. We have on the schedule another interview for the Rangers. We continue to, on the weekends especially, run into groups, having soccer games, full board soccer games with officials and all that, and that still isn't allowed under the red tier. So the Rangers are still out there. They have a tough job because obviously they have to take a lot of the comments from people, but they seem to be trying to get the education part of it going. So. Other than that, I mentioned to Commissioner Batterson that the Campfire Cabin, did we talk about that at the last commission meeting?
We did a little.
Can't remember if we did or not.
Yes.
So Campfire Cabin, as an organization, Campfire, the Central Coast dissolved. their board of directors vacated their offices, they terminated all their staff. So we took, the city has ownership of the building. We purchased it from the high school district back in the 50s. We sent them a couple of emails and a couple of letters letting them know that we wanted to meet and talk to them, and they all came back unresponsive. I talked to some prior city staff that used to be on their board of directors, one of our city attorneys, who still runs a nonprofit that worked with that board of directors. And pretty much he said they all just walked away from their duties. So we went into the building, we've cleaned it up, we took all their property, boxed it all up neatly so that they could come in and pick it up, whomever their successors are. Right now, we have an agreement with the Good Samaritan Shelter and Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley to open the building for the Good Samaritan children residents that need a place to study. Because apparently there's not enough room to socially distance in the shelter for the kids. So they're going to do that and offer tutoring. Fighting Back will offer tutors at that location, and they'll be able to handle not a whole lot of kids, probably a dozen or so in that building, because it is pretty small. So that's going to run for about 2 to 3 months, hopefully, as things evolve. I did get a call from an attorney representing the Santa Maria, I believe, I shouldn't say Santa Maria, but I believe they're all Santa Maria individuals who were involved in Campfire as their volunteer leaders that want to get the program started again. So he is providing them pro bono legal services to go to the Superior Court to get a court order to be able to reactivate Campfire the Central Coast with a new board of directors. And my communication with him was pretty much, hey, great, we'll wait to see what happens, and you can come back and talk to us once they get a board appointed or elected or whatever happens. Then we can sit down and come up with a mutually beneficial agreement to use the cabin. That's been missing over the years. It was always the Campfire Cabin, and then it was, well, it's the cities, it is the campfires, was it the high schools? And so as we dug through, we did find that it is the city's building. It is in the park. We did have an agreement with the last Campfire administrator to allow them to operate their activities out of the building and pay a minor fee, like $100 a month towards utilities. So we're looking, again, if they come back, we'd like it to remain a Campfire facility, if that organization pulls itself together and, gets the youth involved, be happy to let them come back and work out an agreement to where there's actually a contract. We know who's responsible for what, and, there's some really clear definitions of roles. So we're working on that. I don't know how long things take to go through the court right now, but I would assume that this will probably take quite a while because it's not a pressing issue for the court. So we might not hear anything until after the first of the year. That's kind of where we are with that. I know Brett's got his section, so I'll be quiet now.
I think you deserve a break after all that, Alex. So, right, let's see if I can figure this. Well, oh, here we go. There we go. Okay, so wanted to discuss with everyone South Broadway tree and plant revitalization. So essentially, the city is looking at trying to revitalize this corridor from the median to the areas that are under and within the district, or within the city's area of responsibility along each of the sidewalks. But mainly the median is what we're concerned with here. So the project that we're looking at in concept is from South Broadway all the way down Stoll to Santa Maria Way. So a pretty big area. And the genesis of this is we were looking at trimming trees that are along that corridor that haven't been trimmed in a while. And so we said, okay, let's trim the trees. We wanted to do that before winter time. And then we said, okay, we have a lot of trees in here that are in pretty bad shape. So, and this area is in pretty obvious need of renovation. So what can we do to, while we're there, because Caltrans will only let us on that road for about 4 hours at a time. While we're there, what can we do to start implementing, you know, a future plan? So that's what this is. So the overview, some of the existing trees, because of age and selection, are in need of replacement. And if you drive the corridor, or if you'd like to drive the corridor with me or go walk it, I'd be happy to show you some of the areas that we're concerned about. There's some obvious health issues, which you'll see. We'd like to generally plant trees in a more organized fashion. You'll see a lot of the trees out there are various species, one right after the other with no real theme. And so we'd like to bring a theme to that corridor with a little bit more, still have variety in species for, you know, pest and disease reasons with trees, but generally a more methodical approach to our plantings. And so we're looking to bring those up to modern standards, knowing some of the concerns that we have, or knowing some of the issues that we have with that corridor. In the past, we've been restricted, you know, by the fact the median is built over an old road. And so under that median that you see out there is more asphalt and concrete and road base, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we remove trees, we'll stump grind, we'll excavate out that hole and put a new tree in, but we'd also like to, in the future, cut more of that roadway and try and get that to be a better planter that's going to be better for the trees overall in the long run. So Caltrans has a project here in 2022 is when we're expecting that project to happen. So we're going to start to, I'm going to be dusting those plans off and seeing where we might be able to get some of our projects accomplished with that. So tree removals that we've identified so far, there's 6 deodar cedars, 3 lemon gums, or eucalyptus, large lemon gums, 5 flowering pears, 6 liquid ambers, and then 10 small trees. Like there's some madrones out there that are, you know, pretty small. They're not going anywhere. They have no vigor. And so overall, you know, large trees, and so we're not going to clear cut it. What we'll be doing is this will be a phased approach over a few years, but we're going to thin trees, we're going to trim trees, and then the areas that you'll see, we're going to, you know, there's a couple of them that we're going to end up clear cutting, and that mainly the palms is one that will end up getting clear cut, and you'll see that there are other trees that were planted years ago that are filling that void. And so it's been part of the plan, just now we're trying to put together more of a plan here. So the deodars, all around Santa Maria, they look like the wind sculpted deodars. They struggle all around the city. We know that there's a few of them that do great. I've seen some around town that look great. It's more the exception than the rule. And then they're not a great median tree. You know, the base of the tree grows out really wide into traffic, and you'll see the next time you drive north on that corridor, you'll see in the left lane there's a couple of spots where there's a nice little box truck cut out of that tree. So again, wrong tree, wrong location. And then a couple of these large lemon gum trees, we've identified some structural issues on some of them, and it's time to, it's a particularly bad tree to have on a road like that. So some of those are going to get removed. And then the queen palms out in front of the Stoll Center, you can see that there's other tree plantings that are in between those trees. So that will enable us to, you know, plant the right species. There's a couple of the pear trees out there as well. They're just not doing too well. And so with this opportunity, if we have a question about health, we're going to go ahead and replace that tree. So lemon gums, queen palms, that's an area where you'll see more activity, probably more noticeable. So what we're proposing for the shoulders, and this is in concept right now, but this is where these are trees that we've seen success with. On the shoulder, the Salix alcova, and then in the median, we're looking at oaks and crepe myrtles. So crepe myrtles on the corners, where the median is more narrow, and providing some color on the ends of those, you know, medians, and then getting to a bigger tree in the middle. We like oak trees, deep rooted. So kind of concept, as the median narrows, we're looking at some crepe myrtles and color on the edge, and then moving toward live oaks and cork oaks have done really well for us. So there's the saw leaf Zelkova. And then live oak and cork oak, which I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with. Great myrtle on the corners. So, and then the second phase, I'm thinking this is probably going to be a 3-year project. Okay, so the first phase, we're going to be removing the problem trees that have questionable health. And then we're going to move into, more filling in the trees that meet our design. Okay, so at first we'll take trees out and fill the existing holes. But then we're going to come back and plant other trees to make it look better. And then part of that will also be doing the median. And the landscape improvement itself is our hope to be able to, really get some good soil in there, and then do, plenty of flowers and just clean up the median. I mean, that's the median right now. It's just, it's pretty barren looking, and so we want to bring some life to that. There's also pedestrian concerns out there. There's a lot of trespass or jaywalkers. So what we're looking at, we don't think we can put a fence in like we have out in front of City Hall here on this road right here. But the concept of that green fence to try and discourage some of that pedestrian traffic is what we're after. So if Caltrans won't let us put that fence in, which they likely will not, we're going to use, plants that tend to give us that fence feel without having a fence for traffic issues. So there's going to be, moderate height, resilience to harsh urban conditions, low water maintenance needs. So, various types of ground covers that we're going to be looking at. Maybe even some of these, we'll see if the agaves can work out there. Carpet rose is always very intimidating. You don't want to run out to the middle of the road and run into a bunch of roses. Bunch grasses. Shrubs, right? So, overall, we're going to bring a more detailed plan. Scott's going to work on the design, a more detailed plan for the design on how we'll put the landscape back. But the thought is, like I said before, a phased approach. Don't clear cut the whole thing, but let's start working toward a plan on that corridor where we are going back with the right tree species with the understanding that we will have 2 or 3 phases to this project with the end goal of having new trees that are appropriate and a freshened landscape. So what we're looking at is roughly 39 trees before winter. There's probably, I think you will notice, under 10. I think you'll actually notice. We're being very strategic about what trees we're taking out, and it's like I said, because we're doing it in little sections. We're trying to make that, as minimal as possible as far as the impact. And then immediately going back with new trees. So, anyway, we'll bring back a planting plan once we have that done. And then, we'll continue probably with a future round of tree removals and then finish up our planting. So, that's what I have. Any questions on that?
Always. Thank you. I think it's great. Some of those trees obviously need some attention and help. I have questions about the lemon gum, just because
Yes.
the other side of Broadway has experienced so much change already, and those lemon gum trees, while so messy and so problematic, they do provide a lot of shade. And in an area that does get a lot of pedestrian use, it's going to hurt. And so the trees that you said were going back in there's going to be a good shade amount.
Yeah, we're not gonna remove all the lemon gums.
Okay.
So you're gonna see, I think there was 2 or 3 of them, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
And then we'll replace those with the solid-tailed cobra. We may end up going with another species, but those are, once they mature, they're a very nice shade tree.
Okay.
But we can't get something because of how tight that median, or how tight the edge of that sidewalk is. We need something that has a little bit more height to it before it, goes into the road.
Right.
So it's a challenge. You get more shade with a big tree, but we have a history of branch loss with those gum trees, and it's just time.
Right.
So yeah.
And then, so 39 are coming out, and how many are going in?
Eventually, we'll easily double. So for the 39 that come out, so every one that we yank out will be planted a new tree. So, but there will be more trees eventually because we're going to go with a more methodical approach. So if we, and this is kind of the rule of thumb. When we get out in the field, we'll see. But what I'd like to do is, if you saw the concept of, if you crepe myrtles together and then you had a bunching of oaks, right? And then maybe some space and a different change in landscape, and then you have 3 different trees. Right now, it's every 40 feet, you've got a tree, you've got another tree, and you've got another tree. So we will put trees back in those holes unless I really feel like, and Scott and Roy are, like, hey, we're gonna probably change the way we do this, and so let's hold off on putting one here and then do 3 trees. So overall, we're gonna see a net, we'll likely hit the 2-to-1 ratio, is my opinion. So, but without a fully developed landscape plan yet,
Right.
can't tell you exactly, but our goal is to have more foliage out there since it's so sparse already. So,
Thank you.
sure, okay. Moving on to standard updates. We did have an encampment cleanup that districts and parks participated in last week. That was along the Presker Lane, along the freeway. It was a fairly large encampment. And so we're about 80% with that cleanup. We weren't able to finish. There's still some material a little bit further south, but we will get to that after some of the other higher priority projects. So just to let you know what our staff has been very busy. The updates at the top, I put projects. This has been a month, some pretty substantial projects. Pickleball courts at Hagerman, Manami. So we're gonna be doing the pickleball courts. They'll receive the painting, so all the striping, painting, netting by the end of the month. They're gonna start on the 22nd. And then with that, Manami and Bobby Apache Park will be painted, their basketball courts. So Manami will get a fresh coat, and the new park, Bobby Apache Park, will be done as well. So that'll be exciting to see. Skate park will continue to be staffed. We're probably going to be adjusting hours based on daylight, with the time savings. So we still continue to get, from what my staff is telling me, less vandalism, less issues, more satisfied, mothers with their children out there using the park. So having an attendant out there has been a net positive. We're not going to have the staff indefinitely to be able to do that, and so maybe with some of the adjustments in our volunteer policy and some changes that we're able to make in the long run, maybe I can get someone out there that would be willing to volunteer to kind of keep that going, keep that positive change happening. Jim May Park, we have a project going to replace the missing split rail, and then just generally freshen up that perimeter fence that's around the lake. So that's another project that we're working on. Our big project for the month has been Las Flores Ranch, and we've been assisting the police department in hydroseeding, preparing for hydroseed and of roughly 2 acres of exposed slope. And then our staff has been out there running about a half a mile of irrigation pipe from one of our pumps into a water tank a 10,000 gallon water tank that we bought, and then from there into a booster pump, and from there into a massive water cannon that will irrigate the hillsides. So our staff has taken the lead on that. We've also been doing some grading changes out there to better accommodate the water flow. So we've put in riprap along, areas that eroded last year and are just trying to prevent that from happening again. So it's been a very high priority project. We are out there doing jute netting, and if you don't know what jute netting is, it's a roll and it has like burlap little squares in it. It's a big sheet of material and it prevents erosion. And so we've been sheeting part of the hillsides with that. And then just in preparation for hydroseeding next week. So pretty substantial project. Russell Park, we did a news release today. The project is complete. There's a little tiny bit of work that isn't part of the project that we'll be completing where the old bathrooms were. We're going to be planting that. But the grass is sprouted, so go take a look. We're depending on weather, it's either going to be December 1 or January, first week of January, depending on how quickly that grass establishes. So, but that's an exciting development. Harvest Glen Park, our paving is complete, the drive aisle and the parking is complete out there. Wood chips are all installed, electrical's all ready to go. So all we're doing now is finishing up our distribution irrigation, which our staff is doing. So with all the other things going on, it's, been tough, but I'm still hoping they will finish by the end of the month. But it'll probably be the first or second week of November, but that's okay. They've been working their butts off. Veterans Memorial Park, design we're at 100%. The deed restriction is recorded, so we're able to request funds from the state now and get reimbursed. And the preliminary plans we received from our architect, those are all in for preliminary review before we submit to the city. So it's just a way for us to save some headaches in the back end, so we do a little bit more work on the front end. Chapel Plaza, that's already taken place. So we'll have plans this week that will be submitted to the city. So once we go through the planning and permitting process, we'll be ready to go out to bid. So, still hoping for first part of next year, we'll be able to be under construction. Enos House, we've got the roof off. We're installing a temporary driveway for access out there. So if you see some activity, that's what that is, so that when winter time comes, the fire truck can still get there and workers can access the site. I don't know if you want to talk about some of the issues we had there. Or...
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So we had gone out for a request for proposal. We talked last time about the structural and getting somebody in there. We went through the whole process, and then Public Works notified us that we didn't follow the process correctly. So we need to go back out again. So we'll be out another 30 days or so. We have to rebid the project. We did have a successful bidder in our phase, in our RFP. So hopefully they'll resubmit again. We have all their information. It should be pretty straightforward. But we want to make sure we follow all the procurement requirements. So we're going to do that again. And that will button up the house for the winter, we hope. There's a few things we're going to, now, because of this delay, Brett and I have to talk about some other steps we can take in the interim, just in case. So we'll be doing that.
That concludes my updates. Unless anybody has any questions for me.
I do.
Yes.
I've had a few people ask me if there was any way that we could help refill the water before the rains in case they don't come at Jim May. No, okay.
None that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so all that is ag tailwater, which is basically the runoff from the fields to the east. Right now, they are planting new crops, so we are going to see more tailwater coming downstream over the next couple of months while they get ready for their winter crops to come up. So that's the only place that gets water is that ag runoff. So I expected you're going to see it going up. The other side of it is that the county likes to keep it drained in preparation for the storm water coming for the winter. So normally around the October, November timeframe, they would drain the lake. This year they drained it early so that they could get in and clean it all out and get the sediment out of it so that they could handle more capacity this winter. So from my conversations with flood control, is they expect to have a pretty decent wet winter.
Okay.
So we should see some water headed in there, but that's why it's kept low right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
you. Okay, official business conducted by a member. Do you have anything, Laura?
Oh.
Rebecca?
Yeah, tree committee meeting, we had September 15th. We're doing goal setting. September 30th, there was a Buena Vista Beautifiers meeting. Brett was there as well. It was actually to discuss a shade structure that it's been in discussion for quite a while, and will continue to be. But it's going to be a shade structure where the where the parents gather right by the children's playground. Let's see. But the best part of that meeting was that they're planning on doing the Peanuts characters for the holidays this year. Yes, and the Recreation and Parks is going to be part of that, Brett's helping them. But that's going to be a thing. So it's perfect because it'll be drive-by or people could stop and, see them, but it's going to be, so that's a good thing. It's something cute. So that was it. That was that. But I have something else. So I walk around Jim May Park every day with the dog. And the past few months, I've seen this guy with this huge lens. And I walk by his car because there's like more huge lenses on the seat. I always think, you just leave them on the back seat. And he takes pictures. And one day he walked right by and I said, excuse me, what are you taking pictures of? And he was so excited to talk about it. He goes, come to my car. And he had just... Well, and the dog. But, so he took me to his car and he had just picked this up at Aero Photo. And he photographs the birds that are at Jim May Park. And this is like the most glorious photo. And, a vulture. And I'm going to pass it around because they're so beautiful. But since then he showed me, he always has a new one in the car. That's the only one he gave me though. But I'm thinking this could be part of our art, to do a show of the birds at Jim May Park, they're remarkable photos, remarkable.
That's a really good photo.
Isn't that gorgeous? I know.
It's a healthy looking bird.
He's been eating well.
I had my motorcycle accident. They were circling above me.
Oh, no.
But it's somebody that utilizes our parks for, this beautiful art that he makes. And
Amazing.
hopefully we can showcase this. Even, I was thinking maybe we could even do it as a online
Interpretive
art
or-
show,
yeah.
Yeah, just because remarkable painting, or,
Sheila will make a note of that if you wouldn't mind to tell us.
Do you want
Yeah.
to see it?
Do you have contact info for him?
I do.
Okay, yes. And we'll have Dennis
I like
follow
it
up
on
with
the
that.
metal.
Isn't that cool? I know.
I think an online show would be really,
Yeah,
if he's willing to do it, that's good.
Yeah.
if he goes to all this trouble,
Yeah.
but,
Beautiful.
anyway, that's it. That's all I have.
I was also at the tree committee, and, it's moving along, so it's good to see. And then we also had the capital projects meeting, and we have a lot going on. It's amazing how much is going on and how much the department actually completes. And so kudos to you guys. Do you have anything that you want to add?
I'm still confused as to which committees I'm supposed to be. Haven't heard anything.
Sheila,
You would have the list.
so while Sheila looks at it real quick, one announcement for, some of you anyway. So the planning manager, Ryan Hostetter, announced that she's leaving. So I think she's got like another 2 or 3 weeks left. And so she was the catalyst behind the general plan update. And the downtown specific plan updates and a lot of other stuff. So that is going to put a little crink in progress, although Mr. Ing says he thinks he'll be fine, and so we'll see. But just so you know, if you happen to run across her at a meeting coming up or a Zoom, she'll be headed to Idaho.
To where?
I don't,
Soon they'll just have to call it California Northeast, right?
yeah. Was there any other community interest items?
Not for me.
Commissioner Lee is on the Community Partnerships Committee with Commissioner Batterson.
Have they met yet?
However, you will be meeting, because that will be how we handle the Campfire Cabin.
Oh,
I'll get a group to handle that.
all right. Okay, anything else from anyone? Okay, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:21, and the next meeting will be Tuesday, November 10th, 4 PM.
Thank you all very much.
Brett, who does the water, who's like takes in charge of the water fountains?
Depends on which one.
Carlotti and Seward
Oh, Butterfly.
water fountain.
That's you, Brett. That's on, off the trail.
Yeah,
The river.
yes,
Trail.
yes.
You may not know it.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's funky. Isn't that what the